Graham got up early he's come to talk to us. He's back. Senator Graham was in exile from the Hugh Hewitt show for a long time. It's welcome back day, Senator. Good to have you.
Good to be with you. You should do an afternoon show.
I know. I would get Lindsey Graham every day. Senator, I got a lot to cover with you.
Okay.
Afghanistan, FISA. I want to start though. It was a South Carolina House member long ago, Robert Goodloe Harper, who uttered that famous phrase, millions for defense, not 1 cent for tribute. Now, phases 1, 2, and 3 of the rescue have had a lot of necessary stuff, the PPP, a lot of good stuff, but there have been millions in tribute for special interests, but not one penny for defense. In phase 4, can we get the 20 billion or so that we need for virus-related defense costs, like more F-35s, another Virginia-class submarine, Coast Guard cutters? There is stuff, the cybersecurity stuff. We need some defense spending in there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. As a matter of fact, Roger Wicker came up to me and mentioned that there's a shortfall in request in terms of equipment that's never been filled. This would be a good time to put that on the table. So if you're going to go big, include the military.
Thank you. Angus King was on yesterday, as was Chris Coons. It was Democrat Day on the Hugh Hewitt show yesterday. He chaired this cyber security solarium commission with Representative Gallagher. China is attacking us even now in cyberspace. Is there a chance to put into phase 4 the cybersecurity solarium commission's recommendations, most of which are bipartisan and agreed upon?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it. You know, Angus and Chris are two people you can definitely work with. And, you know, the big issue for China is what's going on. Well, it's the communist dictatorship that, quite frankly, is under pressure from all fronts. It's under pressure from its own people in terms of the way life is lived in communist China. It's under pressure from the Trump administration on multiple fronts, from trade to the virus, and it's becoming to be seen as a pariah nation in Africa and other places. So this is a very dangerous time regarding China.
There are 3 things I want to ask you specifically about. First of all, I'd like to give permanent visas to Hong Kong students who are in the United States now. I'd like to expel, as a means of hurting the Chinese elite, all non-Hong Kong students. Just, it's not their fault, but their moms and dads are screwing Hong Kong out of their freedom. And I'd like to get the Olympics out of Beijing. What do you think of those 3 suggestions, Senator Graham?
Well, I think they're pretty good places to start. So you got the Hong Kong autonomy problem, where they're backing out on a deal they made with the British in '97 to allow Hong Kong to have a separate status, an autonomous status, the rule of law, democratic elections. They're basically violating that deal. They're refusing to cooperate with the world community about how the virus started, where it started, and what the nature of the virus. The wet markets continue to flourish, which is the where the pandemics come from. So, yeah, I think we should have a coordinated strategy to make them pay for the damage done to America, over 100,000 lives lost and 40 million people unemployed, cancel debt. Maybe you could have a pandemic tariff. I don't know. But when it comes to Hong Kong, hit the ground running, deny them access to financial institutions in America, and close off the universities to the Chinese Communist Party handpicked students. That's a pretty good place to start. Hong Kong is very important to the Chinese. It's a sort of a cash cow. And if we don't change that status, we're making a mistake.
And sending their kids home. It's not fair to the kids, but their parents, the elite in China, the party elite, the 90 million
Right,
people that run that country, they send their young people here. And we ought to just
right,
send them home unless they're Hong Kong kids.
right. I agree with that. So the point is that the Chinese Communist Party picks the people that come here. Some of them are tied to the military, the intelligence community, and this is a moment in time for President Trump. He's had a really good pushback on China's cheating, intellectual property theft, trying to level out trade, get a trade deal that's more fair. But this is an assault on democracy and freedom. This is sort of like Putin going into the Crimea. This is a time not just for the United States, but the world. And the problem is that we're so integrated with the Chinese economy, people are afraid to speak up. So my advice is speak up, speak loud, and make them pay a price.
Well, 100% agreement. I think you'll get Chris Coons. I think it'll be bipartisan. No matter what you
Yeah, I do too.
do, I think it'll be bipartisan. Let me turn, Senator, to your chairmanship of the Judiciary Committee. A number of questions. First of all, do you have any knowledge of any of the 9 Supreme Court justices retiring this summer?
No.
If one did, and you just said you don't know that one would, but if one or even two did, would successors be confirmed before the election?
I think that would be the goal. I mean, the Merrick Garland situation was a party in the White House and a different party in the Senate. That doesn't lie here. Election year confirmations would be contentious, but the Democrats changed the rules so they could pack the circuit court. They did away with the blue slips requiring a majority vote for circuit courts. We changed the rules for the Supreme Court. So if a vacancy did occur, and I don't expect one too, I hope everybody has a long, healthy 2020 on the court. You would see an effort by Republicans, I'm sure, to fill the vacancy.
There have been 51 federal circuit judges confirmed. There are two awaiting votes that I think, have had hearings. You'll get those done.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you know if there are any more judges out there eligible for senior status who will take so?
If you are, take it. So,
would you expand on that?
Well, so the point is, and this is an historic opportunity. We've put over 200 federal judges on the bench. I think 1 in 5 federal judges are Trump appointees. You can get 4 more years. I mean, it would change the judiciary for several generations. So if you're a circuit judge in your mid 60s, late 60s, you can take senior status. Now would be a good time to do that if you want to make sure the judiciary is right of center. This is a good time to do it.
If they are an originalist eligible right now and they're listening to Lindsey Graham, Chairman, can you assure them that their successor will indeed be confirmed before the election?
Well, if you wait, November the 1st, no. So do it now.
Do it now. Got loud and clear.
Need some time.
All right, Chairman, I want to turn to the district courts. You've confirmed 141 district court judges. There are 42 more nominated. Of those 42, 14 are from California. Now, this is injurious to justice in California. I know a couple of them, like Mark Scarcy and Rick Richmond. Not well. I met them once. They're not friends. But I hear from their friends, they're just absolutely screwed. They were nominated years ago. And Senators Harris and Feinstein will not return blue slips. And as a result, everybody in California, no matter what their ideology, no matter what their gender, no matter what their cause of action, are screwed. How can this go on?
Well, it's the blue slip situation. Institutionally, the Senate has had a blue slip policy when it comes to district judges that no district judge will be confirmed unless both senators from the state agree. In California, we've had 2 blue slips returned, 4 more we think we're going to get. We're negotiating with the rest. So I have made a conscious decision to make sure that circuit court judges could not be vetoed by home state senators. We've had a lot of circuit vacancies in blue states, and we filled them with qualified nominees. I've also made a conscious decision to not change the blue slip policy when it comes to district court judges. If we do lose the White House down the road, that will come into play on our side. So that's a decision I made. I think most members support this decision. It gives the institution of the Senate a chance to have a say about district court judges.
I understand the reasoning, but I want Democrats to understand that when Ted Cruz and John Cornyn, should the White House ever become Democratic while they're in, they won't approve a single trial court, because this is what Kamala Harris and Dianne Feinstein are doing. They are screwing California litigants, and it's not. Well, they're not ideological judges.
Well, some of these are emergency vacancies too. We need actually the judges filled, but we're looking at maybe 6 that we can do with California, negotiating with the 2 senators and the White House. We've had in Pennsylvania, they have a 3-to-1 ratio. The party in power gets 3 picks, and the party out of power gets 1. There are different deals in different states. We've gotten some blue slips from blue states, and we'll continue to do that. So time will tell.
I hope on your list is Mark Scarcy and Rick Richmond. That's my special pleading.
I'll remember those 2. Okay.
Let me go to George Floyd, who was killed by a Minneapolis policeman. He and other officers will be tried, but this was on tape. And originally, the Minneapolis Police Department appeared to be misleading the public. It was bordering on a cover-up until video emerged. I'm wondering if there's a role for the Judiciary Committee here. The president has told the FBI to investigate. Bill Barr will make sure the federal civil rights laws are upheld. But I think a lot of African Americans have a legitimate claim to a hearing on the issue of police violence against African American men in these situations. What do you think, Senator Graham?
That's not a bad idea at all, Hughes. Matter of fact, I don't want to interfere with the investigation of the actual incident in question, but to take a 30,000-foot view of things, why does this happen? How often is it? Is it an aberration? The rule of law depends on honest, ethical cops and judges and prosecutors. If the cops are not honest, ethical, they don't follow the rules, they don't turn over Brady material, they use excessive force, then the rule of law deteriorates. And what you see on television, and my view, is just a man dying for no good reason. It's a use of force beyond what the situation would bear. It's hard to watch, and I just imagine how many people died without videos. So, Hugh, that's actually a very good idea. And, they're not equivalent, but, when you have people doctoring warrant documents, that's taking the law into your own hands. When cops have political biases, you see this in the Mueller investigation. It's not good. It's not healthy. It loses respect for the law. I'm a law enforcement guy. I've been a prosecutor, defense attorney, a judge. I've done most everything in my legal career. I have a lot of respect for the cops. But when you get a bad cop and you don't come down hard, you erode trust. So I think the president is right to have the federal government look into this incident. And I think your suggestion of having a hearing about where we are in 2020 is a good idea, and I'll get on that.
There is no one like your colleague Tim Scott on these issues. He pointed out Eric Garner, Tamir Rice. These are not related to who's in the White House. This is related to who is running a police department and what values they have. And I think he's in a uniquely difficult spot. He really blew back at Joe Biden when he said, "If you don't vote for Biden, you ain't black." And I thought that was great. And he punched back on people saying this is political. I'd make him your first witness because I think he is doing a hell of a job. I admire him a great deal.
Well, and you have good judgment because Tim is the real deal. I've known Tim for a very long time. Uh, Sometimes you get in these voter voter marathons where you're there to 2 or 3 in the morning. I just remember one night Tim sitting in the corner, a bunch of us watching a basketball game in Guam because there's nothing else on. He's got his headset on, looking at his computer, and I just, hey man, what's up? He says, I'm doing my Bible study. That's that's the way Tim is. He's a deeply religious man. He's smart as a whip. He did a great job with the empowerment opportunity zones that came out of Tim's thinking to wire up and get better opportunities for people in rural and urban poor areas. But Tim's been stopped multiple times on Capitol Hill. I've never been stopped, driving around. So, yeah, Tim is a treasure for the Republican Party, but I think for the United States of America, a conservative Republican who happens to be African American, who has his stuff together, is a real treasure. And we're just in South Carolina. We're lucky to have Tim. And Tim probably could shed light on this different than any other United States senator because he's a conservative Republican.
It's not going to happen, but it won't be long before people begin to speculate that President Trump is going to replace Vice President Pence with Carolina Senator Tim Scott. It's just not going to happen, but it's not going to be long till you see it. You heard it here first. Can we
Well, I
turn?
don't, not gonna happen, yeah. But Tim has got an unlimited future, and just keep being Tim. That's the main thing.
Let me turn to national security issues now. Afghanistan. Are we going to skedaddle? The Wall Street Journal today says the president's going to reduce to 8,600 troops in Bagram and basically Fort Apache, Fort Bagram, and nobody else there. What do you think of the plan? Is it going to happen?
Okay, so we're at a phase now of a counterterrorism footprint. Our advise and assist mission, where we kind of mentor the Afghan military, is coming down. 8,600 is enough to keep an advisory role at the major command structure, kind of the top of the Afghan military and police force. It's a very robust counterterrorism force. If you go below 8,600, I think you jeopardize all we fought for in Afghanistan. You set the conditions for ISIS and Al Qaeda to come roaring back. They will hit the homeland if allowed to. Afghanistan it's in our national security interest not to let it go bad. It's the place where 9/11 was planned. If we pull all of our troops out, you'll have a civil war environment very quickly between the Northern Alliance and the Taliban. Getting the Taliban back into Afghan society on our terms makes sense. Let's end the war through political reconciliation. Let's leave a counterterrorism force as an insurance policy against another 9/11. Let's try to do a trade deal between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Let's maintain a presence in Afghanistan to be on the western border of Iran. You can do all the things I just described with a package well less than 10,000. But if you go to zero, the Afghan army is going to fracture. You're going to go back into a civil war environment. The Taliban will benefit from that. Al-Qaeda and ISIS will fill in the vacuum, and it will be only a matter of time till Iran comes in and gets the benefit of our leaving. It would be a disaster not to have a conditions-based withdrawal. I know people are tired of the war against radical Islam. They're not tired of fighting you. I'd rather have a presence in Afghanistan that would prevent an attack on American interest than just to leave and hope nothing bad happens.
Are you making progress with President Trump in persuading him of
so.
this point of view?
I think so. And I talked to the president yesterday. You don't need 140,000 troops. You don't need zero. So somewhere between 5 and 10,000 of the right mixture of forces, giving capability to the Afghan security forces they don't have, will ensure that Al-Qaeda and ISIS will not use Afghanistan as a platform to strike America. It's not a question of intent. It's a question of capability. If they come back in Afghanistan, every jihadist in the world will be on steroids, and you'll see more of these attacks in America inspired by ISIS. So we have a very good situation right now on the ground militarily, where we have the capability to protect the homeland and keep the place together. I don't know if the Taliban will reconcile with the Afghan government, but now we got the Afghan government reconciling with itself. But if you could do a deal with Pakistan where they police their side of the border for a free trade agreement with the United States, you would provide incentives to Pakistan to do things on their side of the border they've never done before. A free trade agreement with Pakistan as part of a broader trade agreement in the region would bring stability to the region.
Huh.
And Pakistan needs all the economic assistance they can get, tie it to their security performance.
Hadn't thought of that. That's a good idea. Let me turn back to your chairmanship as judiciary. In your opinion, as chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, should General Flynn's case have been dismissed already?
Yes.
Now, I have a series of questions. I just would like to know, yes, no, I don't know, as to whether or not you will be calling as a witness to the Judiciary Committee the following people. Will you be subpoenaing James Comey?
Yes.
Andrew McCabe?
Yes.
John Brennan?
Yes.
James Clapper?
Yes.
Susan Rice?
Don't know.
Ben Rhodes?
Don't know. Yeah, I'm having Senator Johnson's going to look at all the things that happened from the election to transition. His
four
committee's
more.
gonna look at all that.
4 more yes, no, don't know. Joseph Mifsud?
Don't know.
Stephen Halper?
Don't know.
FBI agent Joe Pinka?
Yes.
FBI agent Stephen Sama?
Who is he?
The FISA guy. He's in charge of all the FISA warrants.
Yeah.
Probably screwed around with him.
I want to put one caveat on the last 2 or 3 you named. I can't get in the way of a Durham investigation, so he has first dibs on any witness.
All right. Now, have you had a chance yet to read then acting Attorney General Sally Yates' statement to the special counsel, which was included as Exhibit 4 in the motion to dismiss the Flynn case?
Not all of it. There are 53 of them. We're going through them right now.
It is shocking, and I go back to being in the Department of Justice in 83, 84, 85. It is shocking that she did not know that the FBI was going to interview General Flynn.
Clapper, right, I agree. Clapper and Yates were called about 3 years ago before my subcommittee when the whole Flynn thing got out in the public, when the Washington Post indicated Flynn was talking to the Russian ambassador. Number one, Flynn's the incoming national security advisor. He has every right to be talking to the Russian ambassador. Why are we surveilling the incoming administration by the outgoing administration? But we call Clapper and Yates before the committee. I want to recall them both and ask them about the Horowitz report. Ask them, if you knew then what you know now, would you have a different view of this whole investigation?
The FISA process has clearly been abused, Senator Graham, but I am a fan of it because I used to work for Mason Smith when I ran that for them.
Right.
Should the judges on that court that issued the faulty warrants face some sort of hearing for incompetence? Can you even constitutionally summon them to discuss why they blew it?
Oh, the answer is no. I can't constitutionally summon them. But here's the question for the country: how did the Woods procedure in the FBI are designed to make sure somebody grades your homework? It completely failed. The court relied upon warrant applications submitted by the highest levels of the FBI, Department of Justice. I'm starting with Rosenstein next Wednesday. He signed the last warrant application. I want to ask him if you knew then what you know now. If you knew the Russian subsource had disavowed the dossier, which was the key document to get the warrant against Carter Page, if he disavowed it in January 2017, would you have signed the application in June of 2017, knowing there was no there there? So the goal here is to explore how the FISA court system failed. You can't blame a judge when the cops lie and manipulate, but you also have to have some kind of system in place to check under the tires and check under the hood. Apparently, the Woods procedures, which are on paper require someone to grade the agent's homework, completely failed.
When you check under the tires, you're going to find all the people that Comey and McCabe threw there in the course of the last 3 years.
Well, here's the question. In January 2017, when the subsource came to the FBI, the Russian who gave Steele all the information and said, this is bar talk, this is a bunch of hearsay, the question for me is, how does that not go up to the top of the FBI? We're talking about investigating a sitting president's campaign. How is it possible that the leadership of the FBI and the Department of Justice doesn't hear, oh, by the way, the case just collapsed? That's what we'll be looking at.
I look forward to those hearings. I want to close with two subjects, big tech and then politics. You know, it turned out to be easier to book Mark Zuckerberg than you, Senator. I just want you to know that. But when he was on last week, it's true. He was on last week for half an hour.
I think he may have more problems than I do. He needs to get out there more.
Well, we get along fine, and he answers every question.
I like Mark. I had dinner at his house, but I can keep telling Mark this unlimited liability is at risk, my friend.
That's what I'm going to come to after I ask you about his oversight board. When he was on, they just established this oversight board to review content decisions.
Right.
It's got 20 people on it. 15 of them are not Americans. I call that the new Coke of innovations. That is the dumbest thing I've seen in a long time. What do you think of an oversight board on American political content, an American political speech being made up of 15 foreigners out of 20?
So when I had dinner, well, it's probably not the way to go. So what are we talking about? Facebook is a television station. It's a newspaper. It's a radio. It's every form of communication in one. If you own a newspaper, there are actually rules on how do you run a newspaper. If you get a license for a radio station, there are things you actually have to do. Social media outlets, they have absolutely no governing structure beyond what they want to do to themselves. They have liability immunity. You can't sue Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or Google for anything they may pass on. So if your child is on one of these social media sites and a predator gets on these sites and gets to your child, there's no way to sue them. So I've got legislation that would require social media sites to harden the sites against child predators, use best business practices. If they don't, they lose their 301 liability protection. What I want to do is have best business practices when it comes to content, how you deal with political speech, not let it be self-regulated, but have a relationship, a partnership between the government and the media sites. I do believe in the First Amendment, but these people have absolutely unlimited liability. There's no liability against anything they do, and it's the only group of people in the country that can go into business without any liability coming their way based on their actions.
I think I'm the only non-elected official in Washington that's not working for a big tech company. I'm not a lobbyist, but every lobbyist in town has signed up. Nevertheless, they keep violating. I say big tech. By they, I mean Twitter, Google, and Facebook. They keep violating the first rule of holes. They keep digging. And yesterday, Twitter started censoring and commenting on the president's tweet. So I quote Chariot of Fires, you can't put in what God left out. They don't have common sense, Lindsey Graham, and they do not deserve Section 230 defense if they're going to be a publisher.
What they're going to do is lose the Section 230 protections. When the Internet was first started, YouTube puts a lot of videos up. Anwar Al-Awlaki is still alive out there preaching hatred on YouTube. Well, if you're a victim of terrorism, can you sue YouTube for having this video up? What I want to do, I want to make sure that the decisions these social media companies make about political content, that we have some system in place that we can all trust. And fact checking Donald Trump by referring the person to CNN and Washington Post is probably not the way to go.
Uh, Amen. I want to close with politics. You're on the ballot. You'll win by 25 points. You always do in South Carolina, but we got to hold the Senate. And I
Right.
think it's got to be a nationalized election about the Democrats versus the Republicans.
100%.
If your party or leading members of it favor abolishing or undermining the Electoral College, they oppose equal representation for the states in the Senate, and many of them support expanding the Supreme Court. Can the Democratic Party truly be understood as pro-Constitution, Lindsey Graham?
Well, I think that's a good question. They can't win under the current structure, so they're trying to change the current structure. They're telling every rural state in America you don't count anymore. They want New York, California, LA, and a bunch of other big cities to pick the president of the United States. That's not a very good idea. They're basically changing the checks and balances that have been in place for a very long time. They don't like the Supreme Court because we won elections. We get to pick conservatives. That's a crime unless you're picking a liberal. That's just good government. So they
Huh.
want to change the nature of the court. And this is a big deal. What they want to do to the country versus what we want to do to the country is worthy of a national election. I like Trump's chances because he's going to embrace systems that have worked over time. They're going to come up with new systems that are exotic and, quite frankly, when they have been used, failed. They're embracing systems that are way outside the American constitutional check and balance system.
So, your friend is Joe Biden, and he's been a very
Hmm.
great gentleman to me when he was on the show the one time, and I have nothing but respect for his personality. But when did you
Right.
last speak to the vice president?
I think I called him a few weeks ago. I said something on TV. The Joe Biden I know, I've traveled the world with him. I've never seen him do anything untoward a woman or heard any bad things about Joe. That's what I know about Joe. Every woman needs to be heard, but you have to, analyze the facts and see if they withstand scrutiny. It's not about him as a person. He really is. He's had a tragic life in many ways. He's a good, decent fellow. You can work with him, but he is now running. He's the head of a party that wants to take our constitutional government, turn it upside down, replace your private health care with government-run health care, give health care to illegal immigrants, on and on and on, and it will just change America. He wants to raise taxes in the middle of a depression almost. It just makes no sense. He dismantled the military with Obama. He was the one responsible for the rise of ISIS. So I've seen that movie. Don't want to see it again. I wish Joe well, but I'm going to be in Trump's camp, helping him as much as I can. And he's a handful, but I think he's done a good job on the things that matter to me.
So, my last two questions about Joe Biden. Robert Gates, maybe one of the most respected men in America, said in his memoir that Vice President
Yeah,
Biden
right,
hadn't
yeah.
been right about a single foreign policy national security issue in 40 years. Was Secretary Gates correct?
Yeah, but the vignette was he left a meeting in the Pentagon and he turned to his aide and said, "Did we just agree with Joe Biden?" And he says, "I think so." And he says, "Check that out." And he said he hadn't been right about anything.
All right,
And,
so the very last
Joe
question.
didn't want to go after Bin Laden. I mean, and that was a hard call, but you know,
He
I'm glad
didn't?
Obama did.
He didn't want
No,
to go
he was the one guy that suggested that he opposed the Bin Laden raid.
Wow. Okay,
So
last
check it out.
question. Difficult diplomatic question. Has former Vice President Biden lost a step or a lap or even the energy necessary to run for president?
Ask me that in October. He's doing well in his basement. I don't. He's eventually got to get out of his basement. Here's what I would tell Republicans: don't underestimate Joe Biden. He's nicer than Hillary Clinton, and he's not as wild as Bernie Sanders on policy. Um, he will be appealing at first glance, but what we have to do is associate him with an agenda that's not appealing. He's the front guy. of a very dangerous agenda, and we're going to make sure that the front guy is not what people vote on. That they vote on he's the guy leading a radical agenda. This won't be easy. Joe Biden will not be easy to beat. Does he make a lot of gaffes? Yes. He's nicer than Hillary. He's not as radical as Bernie, but he's leading a movement that Bernie owns. So that's the challenge for us, is to
So,
expose the fact.
so my bonus question, because I got you, it's every 7 years when the solar eclipse comes, Lindsey Graham
That's
comes
right.
on the show. So
Yeah.
I've got to get my last. Hypothetically speaking, if the vice president were to decide, this is not for me, or the party were to decide we are not for Joe, I am most afraid of Gavin Newsom. So my two-part question: who ought Joe to select if you wanted Joe to win as his vice president? And if he decides this ain't for me, who are you most afraid of? For me, it's Gavin Newsom being his replacement.
Well, Gavin Newsom would be. He's a young, attractive guy. California was doing pretty good until the pandemic. Yeah, that's definitely a trade that would be problematic. Joe may be the first guy in American political history to lose control over picking his own vice president. I think he's put himself in a box, and we'll see who he picks.
That means your committee member, Kamala Harris, doesn't it?
I think she's the leading candidate. I know her. I didn't like what she did in Kavanaugh by any stretch of the imagination, but she's hard nosed, she's smart, she's tough, and she didn't run a particularly effective campaign. But for president, but as a number two, she would be tough. If I were a betting person, that's who I would bet on.
Senator Lindsey Graham, thank you for your time. Have a great week. Stay healthy and come back sooner than 7 years.
Okay, we'll see you. See you soon. Thanks.